Andy Logan, welcome to Kicking Tables. Thanks for coming on the show so we can talk about your new game that's on Kickstarter right now called The Shivers.
Thanks, Sean.
So, Andy, why don't you, before we jump into the game itself, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? Like, who is Andy Logan?
Andy Logan is a father of three. He's a designer, and but usually of other types of products. This is my first game design,
Okay.
and California native, and yeah, that's kind of my bio in a nutshell. But my main hustle for the last 20 years has been as a product designer, and I'm really enjoying jumping into this new branch, which is going to be game design, with our first launch of the Shivers.
Excellent. So, The Shivers is on Kickstarter now, and I believe you have about 17 days left from the time we're recording this. And
Yeah.
what exactly is The Shivers?
The Shivers is a pop-up mystery adventure. So you're going to be exploring several little pop-up rooms like this,
That is fantastic.
Yeah, those look great.
which you might remember seeing at
Yeah.
Yes.
PAX.
Yeah, so Tico and I met you down at PAX Unplugged back in December of 2019, before all the craziness happened in 2020. And, Tico and I were really, really impressed with the Shivers, the whole pop-up book style adventure. I know it's described as an escape room type thing. I think of it more like a non-traditional D&D game.
Yeah.
Is kind of the way I think of it. So yeah, the whole story is told through these pop-up modular books. Correct?
Yes. There's these little magnetic rooms that lock into each other to form a whole game space of a haunted house. And with each adventure you go on, there's different rooms, different layouts, and you're uncovering little clues as you go. You'll have a little avatar in the game, which is your standee, and you'll have a little dashboard for that character. And you'll go from room to room with you and your friends, looking for clues, solving puzzles, opening little doors to find little items. It's very tactile. You're very hands-on. People use magnifying glasses. They get in there with their fingers and open things. So it's a lot of like look and find meets PC point and click, adventure games like Myst and things like that, just on an analog, tabletop scale.
That's fantastic. And the game master, I don't know what you call it in your, I guess, the storyteller.
Storyteller.
Is that what you call it? They sit behind the room, and there's an insert for the room, and that tells that's the guide for the storyteller.
Yes, the storyteller is reading some of the clues back here, and they are running the game like a DM, but it's very scripted and it's very easy. They also have a whole episode guide here.
Oh, okay.
So each episode that they play will have its own little brochure of how to play that episode with all the clues and notes and even a nice flow chart of kind of the main steps you need to take.
Oh, very cool.
So does the storyteller need to review things before jumping in?
Yes, they need about 15-20 minutes of reading that episode guide, getting the gist of the adventure, and then they can run it.
Okay.
With that guide and looking at the clues on the back of the cards.
For players who have never DM'd a game or been a game master of any kind, how easy is it to jump in and be the storyteller?
We're trying to make it as easy as possible, because for many people this will be their first role-playing adventure, even though we do get a lot of veteran D&D players who just fall right into it easily. We do have a whole instruction set of how to be a good storyteller.
Okay.
So how to improvise, how to kind of respond to players and trying to work through their suggestions rather than kind of just saying no to everything, how to kind of pull the adventure out naturally,
Okay.
how to prompt them when they're stuck. So we're kind of coaching them with our instructions how to manage this system easily.
That's excellent. Now, if I remember correctly from our demo at PAX Unplugged, when you decide you want to do something as a character, as a player, you had us roll a die that had worked, didn't work, kind of worked. What are the options on that die? And how does the storyteller know what the response is for each of the die rolls.
Right. It works, kind of works, doesn't work, and backfires.
Okay, so obviously
So
works and doesn't work is pretty clear as to what happens next. But as a storyteller, what if you get kinda works? How do they know how to respond to that? Is that really laid out clear to the storyteller in your guides?
yeah, it's up to their discretion in some cases.
Okay.
Some things don't need a dice roll, so every action won't need one. If they have a key and they want to put it in the lock, that's just going to work. It doesn't
Sure.
need a dice roll. But some things like when you're encountering a foe, I want to throw the freeze potion at the bee across the room, the giant bee monster.
I remember that bee monster.
Oh yeah, he's incorrigible. That may need a little skill check. So our simple dice roll really simplifies whether something works or not. If it works, great. The bee monster is frozen. It doesn't work, you missed. It shattered on the back wall. It kind of works. You hit his foot and his leg is frozen, but the rest of him is coming towards you. So it's up to the storyteller to figure out what
that means.
Degree of, or if it backfires, what does that mean? It could be you hit your friend.
It ricochets and hits yourself or something.
Right.
I think I hit you with the potion when we played this at PAX. I think I may have missed with a horrible dice roll.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, probably, knowing you, Tico.
Yeah.
Now, Andy, the big question I have is you have obviously a set number of the pop-up books, which is this big mansion. How do you, and each of these rooms have already items in the room. Like you said, you can open doors, you can look inside, like the fireplace, inside a safe, for example, and you can open them, and there's objects already in the pop-up book. But how does that change from playthrough to playthrough? If you've already played through a story, is it kind of like you're done, you can't really play it again?
Great question, Sean. It's a lot like an escape room in that you could do it again, but you'd know where everything is, and it would be not a ton of fun. So you could play a story again with you now as the storyteller, with a new group of people, now that you know the structure of it. So that's one option. Or you could play a whole new episode with our unique story card system. So you just swap out the back wall tile like this. It's a double-sided printed card, and you rotate it, and now it's a whole new set of clues and decorations and objects in the room based on turning that card.
Okay, so
our story card.
So the item that might have been in the fireplace before is no longer there on the other card, because that's a replaceable item. I gotcha.
Now there might be a severed head in the fireplace or something. Yeah.
Okay.
Or it's not a fireplace anymore. Now it's a secret passageway. It's a stairway. So we're always going to be changing up the stories with the story card system. Each room has that capability. So if I get the library here, here's the library. You'll see it's got this story card.
Oh my goodness. And all of the items you could find are being replaced.
In the background.
Yeah, everything on the bookshelf is changed. Now it's clocked into position 2 for the next adventure. And you can see on the back, all these clues change in the clue window, and then the title of the adventure changes. So if you're set all to orange on all your rooms, you're all locked into the right adventure.
Wow. So that card actually has 4 different elements on it.
Right. Up to 4 adventures per episode, just depending on how you rotate it. And then all the clues change in the back as well.
Wow.
For the storyteller to read. And the nice thing about these is we sized these, and actually the biggest one is in the parlor, which is this one. These will size to fit on someone's home printer. So the possibilities for kind of printing your own, making your own, sharing are really just bounded by the community's imagination. Once they have the pop-up rooms, they can
set their own stories.
Are you going to provide some kind of a template for doing that? Is that part of the plans?
Possibility.
Yeah.
That is a distinct possibility.
So how many stories will the Shivers have when it launches?
The core game, which is on Kickstarter at 65, will come with 8 stories, 8 episodes. Each one takes roughly an hour to play. And
you said each story uses those things 4 times? So
No, each story would use one position.
Oh, okay. Okay.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
once you flipped it, you're now on to story 2.
Yeah.
Okay.
And they're designed to be played sequentially like that because there is a broader narrative unfolding.
Okay.
So the core game comes with 8 stories, and the deluxe game will come with more.
Wow. And you said, sorry, each story takes how long to play?
Roughly an hour, give or take 15 minutes. Some people power through. Some people like to take their sweet time. Just depends on your group.
Of course, of course. That's actually really good. 8 stories. That's a good 8 to 10, maybe 12 hours of gameplay.
Well,
I mean,
how
when,
we do it'll be at least 10.
yeah, right. I mean, and if you look at games that like Tico and I like to play the legacy style games, which is basically you play through the campaign once. Once you've played the campaign, there's no playing it again. But again, it's 8 to 12 story campaigns of an hour to an hour and a half each. That's not far off from what you're doing here in the Shivers. Do you have plans in the future to keep releasing new story elements?
Yeah, the Kickstarter Deluxe Pack actually comes with expansion number 1. So
Okay.
it's got another room, a whole another pop-up room like this, a whole new set of story cards for new episodes, and we're just going to keep making these expansions with a new room, new characters, new monsters, new story cards.
Excellent.
So each expansion you do has at least 4 episodes in it, and we'll just keep creating that world as we go.
So going forward, I mean, you're going to keep adding new rooms, but will that story continue to incorporate the older rooms into it? Is that
Right.
the plan? Okay.
Yes. So the home base for the story is this haunted house that you're
Yes.
exploring, and it will always be changing and shifting and expanding and taking you to new places, but you're always kind of starting there as the root.
That's so exciting. It's such a unique, the 3D tabletop aspect. I got to tell you, I love pop-up books. I have my whole life. I mean, who doesn't love pop-up books? Right? And we've seen some phenomenal detailed pop-up books in the past. But to have a pop-up book game that is sort of like you said, it's like a Dungeons and Dragons, like a D&D adventure in a pop-up book. It's a
Right.
point and click adventure on your tabletop. It's all of these things, and it really is that, because having played the demo at PAX, it really is that. It's that point. I want to check that. What is that in the? Oh, I found an item, and you tell me what is that item. And each player has a dry erase board where they can write down notes or
Yeah.
items
they
you
have.
found. Correct?
Yeah.
That's right. Let me see if I have one of the prototypes here. This won't be what they actually look like. There's some different ones, but it's got your character picture, a little bit of description, their strengths and fears, and then a whole inventory dry erase area to take notes on or pick up items on.
That's great. That's great. How did you come up with this concept?
Well, it was actually about 2 years ago, almost exactly, that I just kind of a vision came to me of I looked at wanting to get into tabletop gaming again, and I've got a young family, and looking at the options out there, and I noticed everything was just very flat in 2D, and I thought about what people weren't doing, which was 3-dimensional, and looked at pop-up books and saw how far they'd come since I was a kid, advent calendars with little doors and things to find, and inspired by the ideas of PC games, of downloadable content and new content being able to print and play and slide into the system. It all just kind of swirled into my head, and I had this vision of the Shivers just very quickly, and set about building my initial mock-ups of it, which I built 9 of these little pop-up rooms.
Oh, look at that.
I remember seeing those. You had those on display at PAX, I believe.
Yeah, they're really fun because they kind of show the process. So I just learned how to make pop-ups in a very crude way, and then tried it out, and then made my own story cards. You'll see this has the same story card system.
Wow, look at that.
As the
Oh, that's
and started play testing and going. First, I started with my family, and then their friends, and then going to local game shops and playing with more tabletop savvy people. And it just really ballooned from there. And all of a sudden, an idea came to go to Kickstarter and build this up into an actual brand, and the whole world kind of came to me.
That is
So,
fantastic.
question. I know it says ages 7+, and the sort of the look and feel sort of has like almost like a Scooby-Doo Monkey Island feel to the. Is this appropriate for younger kids? Like if I have a 9-year-old daughter, is there something that's going to scare the crap out of her playing this at some point, or is this going to be something she's going to be able to get through, and I can sort of have fun and sort of teaching her the basics of it, of sort of D&D style stuff?
It's funny you mentioned Monkey Island. We should come back to that because there's a little tie-in with that.
Okay.
Yes, it's very kid-friendly. We've played it with our own kids who are under 9. They're 8 now, but when we started playing with them, they were 6. They're friends. They're a Girl Scout troop. They're school. But it's kind of somewhere in between Scooby-Doo and Harry Potter level of spookiness.
Okay.
So there's ghosts and witches and zombies and stuff like that, but it's all very light and fun, and we wouldn't do anything we wouldn't put in front of our own kids. Although at some point, because of our modular system and expansions, we might do an episode or an expansion pack that's geared toward a older audience, just a little darker maybe. But
well, that would be fun.
Yeah.
So the Monkey Island tie-in is, you may recognize the art of Bill Tiller, who did The Curse of Monkey Island.
Yeah. Okay. Yes.
So he's the art illustrator.
Wow.
Doing all of the rooms and characters as well.
That's a great,
very cool.
That's a great catch right there. Look at that.
Yeah, he did our box art, the house, everything. Yeah, so he's having a great time on it, and just doing beautiful work.
Yeah, art really sells the game. I remember when we saw this at PAX, like, sort of just walking past it, it's like, it's a head turner as you walk past. So
it was, yeah.
The art is absolutely beautiful.
Yeah. Now, what's your goal for launching the Shivers once Kickstarter is done? What date are you hoping to get this out?
We're giving ourselves a full year to finalize all the art, develop all the stories, all the characters, the bios, play test all the mechanics even more fully, play test the individual episodes, prototype every room, make sure the pop-ups are working well, and then getting manufacturers to prototype them so we can make sure they're doing the right processes, and then quoting. And so all that is a good year. So that's our target.
It's got to be a very unique process trying to do not just a board game, but pop-up books. I mean, that's got to be something quite different than just going, hey, I need some cards printed. No, I need pop-up books made. And that's not just printing a book. That's like construction.
Yeah.
So there's
hand assembly.
Yeah, wow, that's fantastic. That's so interesting. Now, I was watching, I guess, an early video of the Shivers where you were talking about the history of the book, or history of the game, and part of that video actually showed actual miniatures rather than the paper miniatures that you have in the game now. Was there a time when you thought of actually having plastic miniatures, or is there a future where we might have plastic instead of paper?
Yeah, when I initially started those hand-built prototypes, I was envisioning some plastic minis, and I went on Hero Forge and created a whole ton of family members and monsters and stuff, and used those for playtesting. And then just as I was on the cusp of kind of figuring out how much this game was going to cost, and the pop-ups are definitely the largest cost component, I realized I'd have to save money elsewhere, and the minis became the standees because of the tooling costs and injection molding and everything, sculpting of figures.
Sure.
So in reality, it seems like a great move because we're really celebrating papercraft, what paper can do, and the standees really fit that papercraft feel.
I was going to say that exact same thing, whereas, it's nice to have that tactile feel of minis in any game. But like you said, minis are not cheap. Most games that have a lot of these miniatures, even the big, the giant miniatures, they're not cheap games. But at the same time, for the Shivers, you're right. It's all about the pop-up book, which is two-dimensional. It's a 3D, but made out of a 2D paper. I'm kind of contradicting myself, but you know what I'm saying. It's all paper, like you said, papercraft. And that really, there's something to be said about the characters also being paper in this paper world.
Yeah.
You know, and that's great. That's it's such a good look. It's such a fantastic idea. So,
Yeah. And that's not to say we can't. Our company we formed is Pop Fiction Games. Our first game is the Shivers. There may be other things in the future where maybe minis are appropriate. So we could certainly revisit that at a future point.
well, I wish you luck on the Shivers. I know you're 600% funded now or something crazy. How long did it take you to hit 100% once you hit Kickstarter?
2 to 3 hours.
Wow.
Oh wow, that's great.
Wow. Did that surprise you? Were you shocked? What were your initial thoughts when you first launched it?
Yeah, I thought, okay, I started to sweat a little less and think we just might make it. We just might be able to do this game.
That's great. Have you hit any stretch goals yet?
I'm sorry, can you say it one more time?
Sorry, have you hit any stretch goals in the campaign yet? Do you have stretch goals?
Yeah, we initially launched as the game is complete in the box as is, with all the rooms, all the adventures, all the figures. And we said we will revisit stretch goals depending on how we're doing.
Okay.
And it turns out we're doing really well. Today we launched our first stretch goal, which is at the 300,000 level. And it looks like we'll come on that in a day or two.
You're very close. You're at 286,000 at the moment we record this.
Okay, so maybe a day. And then we'll reveal our next one. But that stretch goal is extra game dice. So the one that comes with is a blue dice, which is about, this one's green. It's kind of a 50-50 positive negative outcome dice. It'll come with another dice that's more of an easy dice. So that one's 80-20 positive to negative. That's for like decisions that really are pretty easy. Like, I'm going to smash the hammer with a vase. Okay, roll the green dice. Let's see how you do. Very high chance of success. But then there's a red dice that is the bonehead idea dice, which you roll. You're proposing something that is just so outlandishly bad that it's almost certainly going to fail, but just might work. And that has a large outcome of negatives on it with a few positives.
Trying to throw the freeze potion at the bee in the other room.
Yeah, that'd be my die that will sit in front of me the entire game. That red die there, I think.
So with that stretch goal, will the story elements have to change, or will that still be up to the storyteller to decide which die to use?
Yeah, that's going to just enhance the storyteller's role, give them more breadth of tools to use in managing the game. And just should enhance the gameplay. It's definitely not necessary to use. You could get just fine with one dice, but it's just a nice gameplay enhancer. So
it's up to the storyteller to decide which die to instruct the player to use, based on how crazy the idea was. There
may be some times it specifies in the episode, this is a red die roll or something.
Okay. But, when Tico says something completely outlandish and everyone at the table goes, "Are you serious?" And he's like, "Yeah, let's do it." I was like, "Okay, roll the red die."
I'll already have the red die in my hand, knowing where we're going with that. So I'm okay with those decisions.
Yeah.
Oh, man. Andy, I am excited for the Shivers. We both loved what we saw at PAX. And once it hit Kickstarter, we both were like, we need to talk to Andy. Because this is such a fantastic idea. Congratulations on hitting your goal so quickly. It's going to be real. That must feel really good to know that this is going to be a real product.
Absolutely.
And before we let you go then, Andy, is there anything you want to let our audience know? Is there anything we haven't talked about that you really want to talk about?
Oh, okay. Let's see. If you go to the Shivers page, there may be some secrets hiding.
Ooh.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, we'll make sure that link is in the show notes below.
Excellent.
And of course, check out the game on Kickstarter and back it, because it is fantastic.
That would be great. Yeah. Yes, we have 17 more days, more stretch goals to reveal, but we'd love to have everyone's support.
Excellent. Andy, thank you so much for coming on Kicking Tables. It's been a pleasure speaking to you again.
Thank you, Sean and Tycho.
Thank you.
Take care.